Welcome to our leadership journey. We are Mike Cloutier and Peter Yanuszewski, and our goal is to interview people leaders at different stages of their career, from frontline managers to CEOs, and extract the leadership lessons they've learned on their journey to help you become a better leader. On this episode, we chat with the brilliant Stephany Lapierre. Stephany is a serial entrepreneur who started her first business when she was just 18. She's the founder and CEO at Tealbook, one of the fastest growing tech companies in Toronto. Tealbook has received a number of accolades, including a Cool Vendor Award by Gartner, and was named one of Spend Matter's 50 Procurement Providers to Know. Prior to Tealbook, Stephany spent 10 years building a successful strategic sourcing and procurement consulting firm. She's a prominent thought leader recognized as one of the top 100 most influential women in supply chain. In our discussion, we cover leading an organization during rapid growth, hiring quality candidates, how Stephany's entrepreneurial journey was inspired by her grandmother, and how the best leaders are like snow plows.
So Stephany, welcome. It's an absolute thrill to have you here joining Peter and I today on our leadership journey. Maybe you can start off by telling us a little bit of what you're doing today and then a little bit of your background.
Sure. So thanks for having me. I'm honored. I've known Mike for a long time. I think probably before he even remembers meeting me early in my career. So thank you for having me. And it's been great and fun to get to know Mike over the last few years. So I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Tealbook. And what we focus on is using machines to improve information on every B2B supplier in the world. And so we collect data on every supplier that provides a service or sells to the enterprise or to the public sector. And we do this a bit differently than what our clients have been addressing data before, where they traditionally would have bought software as a way to workflow and collect information, or services to be able to collect data so that they could have visibility into their supplier base or feed this service data through their systems. Our technology goes out and find, what qualifies to be a B2B company. What about that company is interesting? So we want to know what they do, goods and services, where they're physically located, where they do business, who their customers are, how they're affiliated to other businesses. So identifying parent and child hierarchies. We're looking for financial information, risk profiling, and our machines have gotten really good at collecting, reading, unifying certificates. And so we're able to show, which suppliers are certified small and diverse, for example, sustainable, ISO, GDPR. And so as you can imagine, having all this information in an autonomous way and very scalable allows the enterprise to have better visibility across 100% of their suppliers, so that they're spending $20 million or $100 with a supplier. They get access to consolidated view that's significantly enhanced with a mechanism to continuously improve that data over time. So that gives them a lot of visibility. We can talk, if you're interested, into use case specific to supply chain, but we also have our customers syndicating that data into their software. So it removes a lot of the need for recurring cleansing data services, categorization of the data, uploading this data into software, maintaining those records in software, and most importantly, inviting suppliers to having to go to multiple portals, which we know that with the complexity of the enterprise today and the number of systems, suppliers are really not good at updating their own records across multiple portals. And so we reduce significantly the dependency on having suppliers coming to portal. So all those connectivities give the enterprise really a lot more visibility, ability to respond to market changes, the demands of the business at a level that in the past there was a lot of friction and now we're able to solve for.
So Stephany, that sounds complicated. I have no idea about any of these things. So that sounds very, very complex. And I can only imagine that you're just giving us the top level of this. If you were to break this down and you said, let's use an example. So things people might be familiar with. If we go back to 2020 and you're trying to get a mask or some toilet paper, bit of a problem. If you're shopping for a car right now, like I am, we were just having a conversation before you came on, bit of a problem with supply chain. Can you use these real world examples and sort of give us a sense of what Tealbook does to alleviate some of these problems?
Yeah, for sure. So in COVID specifically, we helped, for example, the UK government identifying manufacturers of PPEs that were ISO certified across the world. And so traditionally, they would have had to make a lot of phone calls and do a lot of searches and engage consultants or buying lists. In this case, they were getting in the news because they're buying from manufacturers or people that were selling PPEs that were not qualified, and they want to improve the access to manufacturers that were known for selling PPEs and that were ISO certified. So meaning a certain level of quality. And so within 72 hours, they had access through our platform to 60,000 manufacturers by type of PPEs, by history of being in business, by ISO certification, by geography, with contact information. And so they were able to respond really quickly and do something that if you'd done manually, there's no way manually you would have been able to collect all this information and be able to access it. Because the data changes also so fast. Companies get acquired, people change, capabilities expand or change with suppliers. So it's keeping access to that information really quickly. Another great example of COVID is Brooke Brothers were looking to shift their production to make N95 masks, and in a very competitive space to source new materials. It requires 7 layers to make N95 masks. And so by leveraging Tealbook, they were able to identify those suppliers ahead of competition, able to secure supplies, and they were able to make 100,000 N95 masks per day within just a couple of weeks. So again, it's the ability to access information. That's more external facing when I'm looking for suppliers outside of my own master data. But there's also, even within COVID, where if you're impacted negatively, is very quickly identifying where do I have low-hanging fruits to provide savings, right? If I'm not on the upside of the crisis and I need to pull back spend, a really quick way is identifying where you have those opportunities and looking at your own supplier base where you may have a lot of duplication. We have customers who had 30 something contracts with the same suppliers at different pricing. So just to be able to go and renegotiate a blanket MSA with consistent pricing, allow them to save several millions of dollars, right? So it's the ability, again, to have access to information in real time that's actionable to be able to respond to market changes or the needs of the business.
The value creation here is very diverse and deep. So it's been a real pleasure to watch the organization grow under your leadership. So I want to go back a little bit in two things I want to focus on today, Steph. One is historically you come from a family that is entrepreneurial or in the business community. So I'd like to hear a little bit about your experience growing up and observing leadership from throughout your life, and then the second part I'd like to explore would be around just your journey in terms of from a corporate, employee perspective to a entrepreneurial, you are the person at the top these days. So maybe we can take that as two questions.
Sure. I mean, I have been brought up in a family of entrepreneurs. So my grandfather on my dad's side started Pepsi back, I think, in the 40s. So bottle by hand, distribute Pepsi door to door by hand, and built it up where Pepsi in Quebec, I think it's the only place in the world where Pepsi has higher market share than Coke. And so very involved in the community. And he passed away, unfortunately, when he was 60. My dad was 15, so I never got to meet him. But what was really inspiring is that my grandmother had 3 kids, so suddenly was widowed, and people wanted to buy the business from her. And so at one point she decided that, well, why would I sell it if I could just run it and make this a living for myself and my family? And so she ended up hiring someone in manufacturing, someone in finance, and she ended up taking it over. And so I grew up with this very inspiring woman who had never worked a day in her life. And suddenly she was running Pepsi, really involved in the community. I attended numerous hockey games and festivals of all kinds and picnics, because my family was really involved within the community and building this business. And my grandmother, what always struck me is that she was really feminine. Like, so she never compromised being, the president of this bottling, the bottling company and distribution company. She was, very feminine, very much her own person. And she ran this business with such poise. And, so that was really inspiring to watch. Unfortunately, she passed away when I was 19. And so I didn't really get the adult side of me to spend time with her. But I remember being really inspired by what she represented and who she was. And then I look at the other side of my family. My mom is a complete survivor. Like, she's had so many different businesses through her lifetime and always reinvented herself. And, she's also very inspiring because she's always navigated sort of where she was not always lucky in life and had a lot of sort of curveball at her, but she never brought this down. She always used it as an opportunity to transform herself and survive. And she's done really well for herself being an entrepreneur her entire life. So I think definitely surrounded by both sides. And I look at my surroundings being from Quebec, all of my friends that I grew up with are all entrepreneurs, like all of them. And so even if they're lawyers, they have their own law firm. If they're a real estate agent, they have their own practice. Everyone that I grew up with is really have sort of, led their own career. And that was also inspiring because there's no really other way of living for myself. We talk about me being in the corporate world. I'm a terrible employee, right? I don't do well. I'm not political enough. I always want to challenge how things were being done. And so I always knew growing up, I want to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what I was going to do. I grew up thinking I actually had my own business when I was 18. I built this entertainment business / corporate event. I ended up selling it for small profit. And then I left for Whistler and I became a ski bum to learn English and have fun before going to university. But that was my first kind of taste at entrepreneurship. We had a press release. We had customers. I did this with 2 guys in Quebec. And then I knew I went to university with the mindset of I want to figure out either meeting future partners or figuring out a business idea I was going to do. And I don't think I went to the right school for it, but it still gave me the education I needed. I got to learn English, very important. And then it opened doors for my initial career, which was working in a very entrepreneurial setting, still not being an entrepreneur myself, but working for a company. My first company was where actually I met Mike, was a small startup that was just building their, communication practice in pharmaceutical. And so I was employee number 5. I think I didn't speak English that well. And I was early 20s. And by the time I left that company 2 years later, I think it was 50 or 75 employees. And so really kind of got the taste of what it's like to be in a very innovative, fast-paced environment.
So Stephany, Tealbook's doing crazy stuff over the past year. So you guys are, as of the reading that I've done, up to about 100 employees. You've tripled your revenue. My understanding, you're the second fastest growing company in Toronto. These are all crazy things that are happening for you in the last 12 months. Talk to us about what it's like to lead an organization that's experiencing this tremendous growth.
It's about people. Right? It's the people that you hire. And Mike has been there for me when I hired the wrong people. And that's really, really hard. It's hard to undo. It's trying, it's challenging in so many ways. And sometimes you hire people at the time where it makes sense, but then the needs change. And that change you need to adapt. And those are hard changes because there's a lot of emotions. Sometimes you hire good people that are in the wrong roles. And that's also really difficult because they're challenged themselves and they feel that they work hard, but it's all about, you might be working really hard, but is it delivering the type of outcome that we want to see? And so when you hire the right people in the right roles, it's amazing the difference because you've got people that, yes, they may be struggling at times. They don't know everything. They're going to make mistakes, but if they're the right people in the right roles, you can invest in that, right? You can support them. You can give them a coach. You can make sure that you've got a good cadence. You can support them or guide them when they're going through, changes that's hard on them. But that's the investment that you have to make. And learning that was hard because I learned it the hard way. And so now that, we're growing, when I look at my executive team, I'm so incredibly impressed of the quality of the people that we brought in, and making sure that they have what they need to be successful, resources and support in a way that they can scale. And that's what we've done in the past 12 months. Since we've closed Series A 10 months ago, we've been really focused on scaling. So we've hired 9 executives. Like if I look at my executive team, Matt's been with me for just over 2 years. He's the oldest executive. And then we have someone in customer success who's been with us for 1.5 years. Everyone else is, our VP of finance just hit 1 year. Everyone else is less than 10 months. So a lot of new people coming in very fast at a time where we're growing, really quickly. So the alignment, hiring the right people, and then the alignment so that they're focused, they understand what we're building, so they don't just go off and do their own thing, has been a big focus of mine this past year.
And Stephany, so everyone's writing about the Great Resignation, right? Companies are having trouble keeping employees or even getting employees to replace the ones that just departed, while you have grown like crazy. So what are you guys doing to recruit talent at a time where other companies seem to be struggling? What's the secret sauce?
So as much as there's a lot of statistic to show that raising capital as a woman is hard, I think, and the stats are real, right? There's 3%, I think, of venture-backed companies are women founded or women owned. So tough in the early days. And I've got opinions on that, but it's a huge asset when you're recruiting. And I would bet you that, maybe more than 50% of the people that came to Tealbook is partly for the opportunity to work for a woman founder. And so I have an incredibly diverse team. My board is 50-50 to date. That may change in the next month. We have almost 50-50 in our leadership team. We're 50-50 in our employee base and gender diversity. And I think it's been, we had someone that we hired from Coupa, and I asked her because she's a top performer, and I knew they were going to be upset to lose her. And I said, "What did you say to your boss?" And she says, I told them I want to work for a woman CEO, woman founder." And there's nothing they can say, right? Like they can't
No
change.
counteroffer for that. Yeah.
Right. So, and I do feel a great sense of responsibility to be kind to them and to inspire those women. And I do think that it brings some authenticity into our culture. And I think that makes a big difference, and it's been a huge asset. So that, plus the fact that we have such a big opportunity, right? This is there's a lot of really good business ideas. There's a lot of technology that have a ton of potential, but the use of our data and the use cases and the opportunities that we have, it's a challenge actually to keep us so focused. We are focused, but it's been a challenge kind of getting everyone so focused because there's so much opportunity. And we have multiple flywheels and network effects that happen into Tealbook. So, for us to think to be a billion or multi-billion-dollar company, it's real. This is not, far off. And so I think that's really exciting. The fact that in our space, everyone's been portal-based software. And so they're seeing now this option for data and a solution that hasn't existed in the market is also very attractive. And so there's a few things, there, but I'd say our culture and the reputation that we build in the market has been our biggest asset for recruiting talent.
Steph, if you think about your leadership broadly, but if you had to hone in on one aspect of your leadership offering, what would you say the most critical criteria has been?
I'm so incredibly passionate about what we do. I think that's probably the one thing that when my team needs me to help recruit, that's all I focus on, right? Is what's the vision and our mission? And I think when you work and you're surrounded by people that are really passionate about what they do, it doesn't matter what they do. It's contagious. People want to surround themselves and be inspired. And like life is short, right? So if you love what you do, and I have a lot of conviction for what our mission is, I think that's contagious. I'd say it's probably number one. You have to be a cheerleader. Like there's, we get ups and downs and things thrown at us of all kind of angle in a day, in an hour. And so I think it's staying level keel. Like I'm never high, I'm never low. I'm the same. And I've now lived through so much that I'm able to help my team navigate some of those, those are some challenges in a way that gives them perspective, right? It may seem like a really hard day or hard minute, but in the greater scheme of things, it's really not. Everything is workable. And so as long as we stay focused on what we're doing, we're making decisions fast enough to be able to make the changes that we need, it's okay. And I think that makes a big difference. But you'd have to ask my team. That's my perspective.
And Stephany, so when you first started leading teams, or maybe even more recently, when you started thinking about what kind of leader you want it to be, so it sounds like this idea of sort of having mission, passion, this vision, it sounds like that comes fairly naturally to you. What are the other pieces that you're sort of thinking about collecting along the way as you develop as a leader to add to that, to sort of fully become this leader? What are the other pieces?
I think that's the most challenging thing to go from founder to CEO is to let go. Because in the early days, it was just me. I literally started Tealbook from my dining room, right? So I built the MVP. I hired people to code, but I was so involved in product development. I was writing all my content. I was, I was on calls. I'm still on calls a lot, but I was, doing everything. And so I think it's to let go. And that's where it comes where you're hiring. If you hire the wrong person, it could be very challenging for that person. And I've had that happen a few times because I give all my trust up front. You tell me you can do the job. I believe you can do the job. And I'm a little more skeptical now. I ask more questions and do more reference checks and make sure that we hire from our network so that we know the person can do the job. And I've been known to give people chances and they've lived up to it, which is really rewarding when you're seeing the potential of someone that can grow into this role. But when you hire the wrong people, it's easy as a founder and that's where I know we've got either the wrong person or the person in the wrong role because I jump back in. And that's where I have to catch myself. I had to do more of that a couple of years ago and learn that I needed to let go. Even today I was calling a meeting. I'm like, why am I in this meeting? Like, you can do this. Like, I don't need to be in this meeting because if I'm there, I'm not doing the other things that are more impactful to the business. And one of my board member recently said, like, Steph, you're the snowplow, right? And all the cars are behind you on the highway. If you stop the snowplow to go drive the car or you take a detour, everyone has to go take the detour. And so it's really important just to stay in the snowplow and snowplow away. And so where I add the most value to the company is being, inspiring and vision and strategy and be able to influence the market because again, everyone's facing supply chain data right now. So everyone's trying to figure out solutions and, there's consulting firms that are presenting solutions that are more antiquated that we don't agree on. So who's going to be out there in the market to influence? And even recently, I was dialing into a webinar of a very influential thought leader. And just the fact that I dialed in and I texted her to say, I need a copy of this recording because this is pure gold. She plugged Tealbook 3 times, right? So to be able to be at those moments, I was at a conference in California 2 weeks ago and I'm just sitting in the audience and one of the customer who's talking stopped and looked at me. He's like, Steph, so good to see you. And then waved. It's like, Stephany from Tealbook just got here, right? So those are all opportunities. There are small things that I can do to influence the market. And so if I can do more of that or help with recruiting or listening to people across different stages of the company to really understand like what are the real challenges and do we have things that we're blindsided by asking the right questions, that makes me more valuable to the company than, trying to figure out like how to fix this or do something, better. So I think that's been the biggest challenge for me, the biggest learning and the biggest growth that I've seen in myself over the past 2 years.
I love the snowplow car analogy.
Yeah.
It's very Quebecois, like that. It makes for sense, right? For a lot of you guys get a lot of snow, and it's a lesson for any manager. I mean, think about anyone that's in a leadership position. If you're frontline manager, right? If you're getting into the weeds and doing your direct reports job, you're not doing the job you were hired to do to sort of clear the path for them. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I had
I
an
love it.
instance where I had an employee that was really good as an individual contributor himself. He was really good. So you're like, oh, you're so good. But when you look at the team that he built, they're not empowered. And so he was drowning because he was not empowering his team to scale, right? So, the discussion was around like leadership, and he was not ready to be a manager of people and a leader. He was a really good individual contributor, and we lost him, unfortunately, because he believed that he was a great leader. So you can't argue with that, right? If you don't believe. And so, but that's good for our team, and making sure that our leaders are empowering their team to be able to do extraordinary things, and they can all go out and get best practices. They all can learn, from other people's mistakes or other people's opportunity. They all have that possibility, and make sure that they take that on, because bringing that best practices or those learnings back into our company is really important. It's not just coming from me, it should be coming from everyone.
Perfect. All right, Stephany, you ready?
Yeah.
Rapid fire. Okay. So, first one, Stephany, if someone wrote a biography of your professional journey to date, what would be the title?
The most resilient founder in Canada. I don't know.
So that's brilliant. Now, if this biography gets picked up and it's turned into a movie, who is starring as you in the leading role?
Oh, I bet someone super hot. I don't know. Kate Beckinsale's pretty hot. I would probably have to pick her.
And I see a bit of a similarity. So that actually makes sense.
No, if you're going to have an opportunity to elevate, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a funny question.
No, but your answer actually is, I think, quite accurate. So that's great.
Actually, okay. No, there's a movie, and I'm trying to remember the title, but it was with Jennifer Lawrence. And if you're listening, you probably know the movie. But there's a line, and not everybody gets what I'm going to say right now. When I said this out loud, people looked at me kind of funny. But Mike, I think you're going to appreciate that. She's building a company that she's an inventor. Do you remember this movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's and an investor. She gets this investor, and she says, if there's a gun between you and an adversary in commerce, who picks up the gun? And she goes, that's a peculiar question. Why are you asking me? She goes, who picks up the gun? And then she goes, I pick up the gun. And I was like, this is so good, because it's on you, right? All the stuff that happens, like, it's on you to figure it out, especially in the earlier days. Like, you just have to figure it out. Then that means doing crazy things to make, to build this company. And, so maybe Jennifer Lawrence. she's a hard ass in that movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie too.
Good choices. Right. Okay. If you were to write a theme song, an anthem for leadership, what would be the chorus line in that song that you think should be repeated as sort of a mantra for all leaders to take hold of?
I believe. Yeah, I mean, you go through so many people say no. It's trying. Like, investors say, I don't get it. Customers who don't buy into it at first, or they don't understand how to articulate the value proposition. I had someone that I almost brought in as a COO, and they said, like, if I was the CEO of this company, I would just write out the software and basically, write it out. And I looked at him, I was like, I'm glad that you're not the CEO. Right? And then he was gone. So yeah, I think believe in your vision, right? That's the one thing. And that's why I've never let go, because my conviction is so, in every milestone kind of reinforce that conviction. And so it makes it that today people are actually buying into it, right? So it took a lot of effort. So you got to keep believing, and you have to have a lot of passion and belief in this vision. Otherwise, it's too trying to even bother, go get a job and live a more balanced life.
Stephany, if for the people on your team, perhaps or colleagues, friends, if anyone is in a leadership position, are there specific books that you recommend or you gift to people? Are there ones that really stick out for you? Ones that even have been very impactful for you personally?
Yeah, and the business books, we like the Challenger sales book because I think it applies to a lot of different things. It's how do you challenge, and we definitely apply it because our customers are thinking a certain way, so we have to get them to think a different way, and that means challenging them on their thinking, and so to add value. And to me, that was really insightful between the different personas of being a salesperson. I'm a relationship builder. And so it's hard for me when I own the relationship to close a deal because I'm so invested in the relationship. I don't want to be too abrupt or make it sound like I'm too aggressive. It's much easier for me to step in to someone else's relationship and get to close. And so how do you leverage the personas and hire the right people for selling something that's so new? The Challenger sale book is awesome. There's one follow on for CS. The $1 Trillion Coach is a book that I bought my entire leadership team. It's an awesome book about leadership. And so this was the guy that was coach to many of the CEOs in Silicon Valley. And just his approach to coaching. And it's really about humanizing people and getting to know them at a deep level. Those are the two books that I'd say stand out. I've got a bunch more, but that's the $1 Trillion Coach is on my shelf right behind here.
Perfect. Thank you. And finally, Stephany, if someone's listening to this interview, however they find it, and they want to follow up with you, they want to see what else you've been up to since this conversation happened, where can they find you?
So on LinkedIn, if you are interested in supply chain, procurement, data, B2B, please follow me on LinkedIn. If you don't follow me because I'm very active on LinkedIn. I do post a lot of articles, thought leadership, share a lot of content. So that's definitely a place. And obviously at tealbook.com, if you want to learn more about the company, please, we have a Tealbot that's always happy to, it's our hardest working employee. And you will take your request for a demo or to find more information about what we do. And so those are probably the best two ways. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not as active on Twitter as I am on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you.
Best of luck.
Nice to
Nice
see
to meet you,
Mike.
Stephany.
See you soon.
Take care.
Cheers.